Kishimoto had left a lot of incomplete threads in the story of Naruto, and now that we are so far into its sequel, there's a good amount of chance for these plot elements to have a full circle moment. The true identity of Jashin, the truth behind the Uzumaki massacre, the OTSUTSUKI who came before Kaguya, the origin of the ketsuryagan, the greater picture behind these mysterious figures, and so on. The authors could play any of these cards to make the OG Naruto fans switch up to Boruto, and by predicting how long it's going to take us to the prologue sequence plus the events beyond, we might be able to get a rough idea on how exactly would these plot branches play out in the story. So let's start with what I find the most interesting, the early OTSUTSUKI. If this one deserves a full video that I have already planned, as the lore gets deeper than what I'm about to reveal. Basically, there have been signs of OTSUTSUKI who had came before Kaguya and Ishiki on the planet, be it the missing stone tablets or the remains of an OTSUTSUKI god that are under the possession of Amado. But I feel like I have cracked the code to why Kaguya and Ishiki actually visited the planet, and while it was obviously for the sake of harvesting a chakra fruit, it's not as simple as it seems. The reason it could be a clever setup is because Kaguya's whole lore got reimagined in Boruto with the entry of Ishiki and the betrayal plot. There could be new additions to her tale that would redefine the story of Kishimoto, and here is how I think everything lines up. In episode 15 of Boruto, Kinshiki revealed that a planet's space curvature must be 10 to make it suitable for harvesting, but for some reasons, the curvature of Earth was 16, which means it was an abnormality. Now this chakra compression was definitely caused by strong chakra sources like Naruto and Kurama. At the same time, they were expecting Kaguya to report back to the clan, which she didn't, meaning she was going to be punished, which was maybe the thing that she feared in the original story. But have you noticed how there was no mention of Ishiki in this conversation? If they actually came as a pair to the planet, why did Momoshiki only mention Kaguya and not Ishiki? Well, the answer can be found in his own statement, where he said that she failed to report back, which is pretty out of character for someone to do. So what if the OTSUTSUKIs had sent Kaguya with Ishiki to simply get rid of him, as he might be planning to do something which could have turned troublesome to the clan. After finishing her job of getting rid of Ishiki, her next step should have been to report the planet back to the clan. But we as the audience know that she got in touch with humans, which is how her plan got changed. Now all of that makes perfect sense, but the question remains, what exactly was Ishiki trying to achieve that the clan had to get him banished? Now here's where the space curvature thing kicks in. The only reason for Ishiki to choose this planet for harvesting could be because it had a high space curvature level at that time, most likely up to 10 or beyond that. But since it was Kurama and the other Biju that were increasing the space curvature of the planet when Kinshiki discovered it, some things don't add up here. There was likely no source of strong chakra production on the planet back when Ishiki and Kaguya arrived, but the fact that they did come there for a harvest makes it clear that there was indeed some abnormality going on there, and this only proves that there was indeed another OTSUTSUKI pair who had landed on the planet way before Kaguya and Ishiki, and this duo could have been none other than Shibai and his pair. Now as for why Ishiki had to be eliminated, well, his plan was to get the chakra fruit of this planet, and coincidentally it possessed the remains of Shibai OTSUTSUKI as well. According to code, the chakra fruit contains the essence of every being that ever walked on the planet, meaning if Ishiki had consumed it, he would have automatically become an OTSUTSUKI god, and maybe the OTSUTSUKI clan feared giving him that much power due to his rebellious nature, which is why Kaguya was asked to betray him by the higher-ups, then report the planet back to the clan. The fact that Shibai's remains are being used by Amado and there are signs of more OTSUTSUKI in the story makes it a clear possibility. So now let's move on to the next setup, which comes straight from the original story, the lore of Lord Jashin. This possibility holds the most chances to come true in the sequel of the story, and it could catch everyone by surprise, even the people who never watched Boruto. While the OTSUTSUKI gods have been introduced as a part of the continuous world building of the story, there was one such mysterious entity in Naruto who had already been referred to as a god, even before this concept was canon to the story. I'm talking about Jashin, the mysterious figure who was the center of worship for an Akatsuki member, Hidan. We don't know a lot about Jashin, but his religion demanded absolute devotion and ritualistic human sacrifices. Followers like Hidan used to practice brutal ceremonies in Jashin's name, often involving drawn-out killings performed within a ritual circle. In return, they were granted a form of immortality, like Hidan, for example, could not die from physical wounds as long as he remained in the ritual. Although Jashin himself never appears in the story, his influence is deeply tied to the themes of fanaticism, immortality, and unholy power, making him one of the most enigmatic figures in Naruto lore. The most mysterious thing about this character was that we never got an explanation or backstory for his abilities that were being used by Hidan. Were they a sort of ninjutsu or a completely new group of abilities which can be categorized as dark jutsu or something like that? Although it was a mystery back then, something got revealed to us in Boruto which might explain what exactly were the powers of Jashin, and that is Shinjutsu, the divine arts used by an OTSUTSUKI god, which are too powerful and often seen as miracles by humanity. The whole ninjutsu thing that humans figured out by creating hand signs was just a mere imitation of the Shinjutsu, and looking at how Hidan did not use any hand signs to perform his demonic techniques, it would be okay to say that he was initiating the divine arts of Jashin in a totally different manner. So assuming Jashin's original powers were a Shinjutsu, wouldn't it make sense to categorize him as an OTSUTSUKI? Now here is where it gets crazier. Hidan already referred to Jashin as a god, and we know OTSUTSUKIs have their own gods too. So wouldn't it make sense for Jashin to be an OTSUTSUKI god, particularly the one who had came to earth with Shibai? What's more crazier is that Jashin literally means evil god. So going by that analogy, could it be that he was cursed by his subordinate Shibai, which is how he lost his stature of an OTSUTSUKI god and got reduced to a mortal? Well, this may sound headcanon at first, but we have a strong hint to consider this a possibility, which comes from the Naruto novel Sasuke Shinden, the Book of Sunrise. The novel introduced the ketsuryagan or Black Dragon Eye, which is a rare dojutsu kekai genkai exclusive to certain members of the Shinoiki clan. After being blamed for several mysterious deaths due to their terrifying abilities, the Shinoiki were banished by the Uchiha clan and the Raikage. They were sent to live in the Valley of Hell, a remote volcanic canyon with boiling hot springs and acidic mist. It was intended as a death sentence. However, the Shinoiki survived for decades in harsh conditions, adapting and growing more isolated. Eventually, the clan disappeared, and it was believed that they went extinct. Now here comes the interesting part that we got to know from the extended lore in Boruto. Every dojutsu in Naruto belonged to an OTSUTSUKI, with the most prominent ones either coming from Kaguya or Hagoromo. The ketsuryagan, however, is a different story. It allows the user to control the iron in blood, similar to magnet release, enabling them to draw blood out of the opponent's body, creating blood spares or waves, or using surrounding blood like a weapon. None of these feats were shown by Kaguya or her offsprings, which means there was a different OTSUTSUKI who bestowed his power to the Shinoiki. And looking at how there was the mention of multiple OTSUTSUKI gods in the lore as confirmed by Momoshiki, what if this other OTSUTSUKI or their god was actually Jashin, the rogue partner of Shibai, whose essence was alive in the Valley of Hell like a ghost? This would explain how Shinoiki got a unique dojutsu of their own, but here is how it gets more crazier. The Valley of Hell, being cut off from civilization, was a breeding ground for dark forgotten practices. Several data books of Naruto hint that Jashin followers were active in remote or inhabitable areas. The environment gave them acidic rivers, sulfur fumes, and torture-like landscape, which was ideal for twisted rituals and training in pain resistance. Now Hidan's pain-loving masochistic tendencies and the ability to withstand boiling temperatures perfectly match what the survivors of the Valley of Hell would adapt to. This has led to fan speculation and thematic hints that Hidan might have either trained in or been influenced by Jashin's teachings that were produced in places like the Valley of Hell. The ritual circle that he draws and his blood-based techniques perfectly mirrors the ketsuryagan's aesthetic in some ways, as both of them involve blood sacrifices, spiritual possession-like effects, and ancient clan-based isolation. So there we go. Hidan could actually be worshipping an OTSUTSUKI god in return of obtaining his dark Shinjutsu that he did. And when you look at how the Shinoiki clan unlocked the ketsuryagan, it could be the same ocular power possessed by that OTSUTSUKI deity. Now this could turn out to be one of the biggest plot twists in the story, as the reveal of Jashin as the second OTSUTSUKI god would literally break the internet, uniting all the OG Naruto fans to read Boruto without being biased. Well, it's just a theory for now, but I personally like this one a lot, so you can expect some more videos on it in the future. Now talking about the OTSUTSUKI who had changed history in the past, there is another big setup from the original story that could turn around the whole lore of Boruto. I'm talking about the mystery of the Uzumaki clan, who had been exterminated by other powerful clans who feared their potential. Well, that's what was revealed to us by the canon lore, but it could be something deeper than that, which could get revealed to us very soon. Momoshiki said that the OTSUTSUKI gods have changed the history of humanity before, and looking at how the Uzumaki's disappearance remained vaguely unexplained, explained, what if it was some OTSUTSUKI god who changed the memories of people around them by making them appear more troublesome? The reasons for this ability to work out comes from the simple fact that they had invented a jutsu which could have turned problematic to the clan in the future. So what if some OTSUTSUKI god had foreseen a future with his prescience where the Uzumaki would have went against the OTSUTSUKI clan, maybe when they would have landed on the planet to battle them, possibly after investigating the Kaguya and Momoshiki situation in that timeline. The strong sealing techniques after evolution would have made it hard for the OTSUTSUKI to deal with them, because while it's impossible to get these creatures killed, the fact that they would have a way to seal them, that too permanently, would have become a huge threat to the clan itself. So in order to stop any future from manifesting, the OTSUTSUKI god could have changed history to make the other clans destroy Uzumaki, preventing them from evolving their techniques. That was the whole premise of this theory and how the Uzumakis could gain some importance into Blue Vortex. But it gets more interesting when you realize the only people who turned OTSUTSUKI and could potentially bring an end to this clan are both Uzumaki, in this case Boruto and Kawaki. So maybe the destiny hidden in the Uzumaki genes, which was supposed to make them an arch nemesis of the OTSUTSUKI, has manifested into Boruto, who is also a descendant of this mysterious clan. As Ishiki also said that genes decide destiny, so maybe the role that was supposed to be fulfilled by the Uzumaki will now get carried by Boruto, that too single-handedly. Now as for the final setup, whose payoff will happen in the story, well, it's the OTSUTSUKI clan returning in the story, which had been hinted to us in the lore in the form of these statues found in Kaguya's dimension. These creatures appear to be the kings or upper heads of the clan, which means there's an entire phenomenal lore waiting for us once the writers would unveil the OTSUTSUKI plot in the story. What I'm most excited about is the backstory of every OTSUTSUKI that we know, such as Kaguya, Ishiki, Momoshiki and Kinshiki. Maybe we will someday see unique novels on each of these characters, and it's not impossible at this point since Kishimoto had promised an exclusive manga of any character based on a popularity poll 2 years ago. It was won by Minato, but what shouldn't be ignored is that if Kaguya had somehow won this poll, we could have gotten a never before heard backstory of her as well, which might even include the other OTSUTSUKIs. This means Kishimoto would someday release some OTSUTSUKI lore in some form, which might unveil all the mysteries that I discussed in this video. If you are interested in more such stuff, make sure to check out these videos right now, and I will see you next time.